Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. And Shea, it is a breaking news podcast, and it is not of the positive variety. Harold Perkins is out for the season with a torn ACL. Zenitz was the first to post it. Obviously, sources have talked about it. I think, we knew coming out of the game. I think my first initial reaction to the injury was, the hit was weird. Then Harold kind of walks off the field under his own power, so you hope it's not that bad. But then Garrett Nussmeier in his post-game press conference said, basically, you could tell by the tone of his voice that it was bad. He was like, whatever God has planned for him, we're going to support him the whole way, this and that. And so that's what I was like, oh, okay, this might be like season ending. And sure enough, he is expected to miss the rest of the season with a knee injury. Obviously, Harold, third-year guy, still a first-round pick, even with perceived, slow start to the year. The number 7 jersey, all of the hype, 5-star guy, awesome person, and has really tried to come out of his shell a little bit more. And for him to go down in the 4th game of LSU season, certainly just sucks. Flat out, it's awful. We hate it for him, and that's where we start with this.
Yeah, nobody who's going to say that he wasn't playing well or that he didn't have. I mean, look, through 4 games, he didn't have any sacks. He had 1.5 tackles for loss. He had no forced fumbles or picks. And we were waiting for that kind of time to come for him to unleash into the Harold Perkins that we knew quite well as a freshman and statistically as a sophomore, Matty B. But he is a key piece to this defense. I think you're about to see. Now we'll talk more in the coming days about who can fill into this role and all that. But what he did on the field, even if he wasn't putting up numbers, was opening stuff up for everybody else. Much like Jacoby and Guillory getting injured at nose tackle was opening up stuff for everybody else. So look, so far they've bounced back the best they could have on the D line without Guillory. Can you do that at linebacker? I think that becomes a big question right now. But Matty B, this was a guy going into the season that was All-American accolades, thought to be a first-round pick in his money year, and 3+ games in, as the report stated, torn ACL. That would mean he is done for the year. Don't know what it means recovery time in terms of if he leaves and preps for the draft or he comes back no matter what. And maybe all that speculation's for another day. But as it goes right now, this is about as bad of news on the defense as you could get for LSU.
Yeah, and to your point of, him not having the strongest start to the year, you still, when you lose a player of this caliber in terms of his speed and what he is at his size, it is a massive blow because now you can't run. First of all, you can't run that 4-3 anymore. And if you replace him with, let's say, West Weeks, all right, West Weeks is slower, right? If you replace him, or if you just go back to the star with Major Burns, or whoever you put a star, is still not as fast or not as impactful as what Harold Perkins could be. The physical traits that Harold Perkins has, whether, again, the past couple years, if LSU's gotten the most out of him or not, are still the reason why he was a 5-star out of high school. He could have been a 5-star running back out of high school. The speed does not change. Nothing changes about what Harold Perkins is as a player. The hard part for him and for what LSU the past couple years has been trying to maximize his impact on the field. Now you don't even have that option anymore.
Correct.
Now you don't even have the ability to reach that ceiling with him or as a defense, because coming into the year, we said multiple times, for this defense to reach that level, they have to unlock Harold Perkins, and the linebackers have to kind of be the force. They have to be they have to be Blake Baker's backbone. And without Harold Perkins now, obviously, well, Greg Penn, Whit Weeks, are good players. Harold Perkins is that guy that, in theory, could have taken this defense, I think, to another level. He hadn't shown it yet, but Blake Baker's a guy who I think would have got this defense going, and still can as the year continues. But it's a massive blow to what this defense could be in terms of the upside and the ceiling moving forward. Now you kind of just got to piece it together.
All right, let's both give an answer here because this is one of our first live videos. We'll go more live during the season, but as breaking news like this comes out, we wanted to jump on. Someone asked, who's his replacement? So Let's start with this. Do they go back to the star package where Major Burns is playing the star position? You only have two linebackers on the field, and that would be Greg Penn and Weeks.
I think so. I think so, especially so you asked me, you texted me beforehand to get the snap numbers up for linebackers this year. And another reason why his loss is so impactful, the top two players in snap count, Ashton Stamps 231 snaps in 4 games, Harold Perkins at 2, 4 games, 224 snaps. Like, it's by far, he is the number 2 player in terms of snaps. After that, you go down Greg Penn, 194, Whit Weeks, 189, and then you got to go all the way down. West Weeks has missed the last 2
He's
games.
missed some games.
So he's missed the last 2 games, but 2 games, 27 snaps. So assuming West Weeks is even healthy, I still think they're going to go back to the star package, whether that means Major Burns. We haven't seen really any Toviano, but that group, I do think they're going to have to go back to their base 4-2-5 set moving forward. And then, you get into a whole nother discussion of, all right, it's West Weeks, and then who else? Then is it a Devon Keys, Xavier Atkins, Tylen Singleton guys? One of those freshmen, I think, are going to have to step up and at least give them some snaps.
They'll have to give the snaps that West Weeks was giving. So at this point,
yes,
right? I mean, they had been rotating or playing three linebackers with Perkins, Whit Weeks, and Greg Penn. With Perkins out, you're playing a rotation of three linebackers with the Weeks brothers and Greg Penn. So I would assume whomever it is, that freshman among that trio of freshmen you mentioned, will get the snaps that West Weeks was getting, which is special teams duties and rotating in, a handful of times a game.
Yeah. So again, I think that's the most likely outcome. They're not going to be able to go to that 4-3 nearly as much. Whit Weeks and Greg Penn are capable players again. I think their floor is fairly high. Those two guys, Greg Penn, obviously a sure-handed tackler. Whit Weeks, someone who has some speed, who is still kind of figuring out the run game aspect, I think, and kind of figuring out where to put his eyes. But and I said this coming out of the last game, the defensive line has by far been the strength of this defense at this point in the year. The hope was that, the
Nobody
linebackers.
had that coming.
Yeah, nobody had that coming.
Not after the Guillory injury, even more so.
Exactly. And so now it's, all right, can the defensive line continue to improve and continue to, I don't want to say dominate, but win their matchups? And then Greg Penn and Whit Weeks fill in from there. And then you just, we'll figure out the secondary later. But that's got to be the hope moving forward. It has to be a team effort.
LSU has 12 sacks in 4 games. Matty B, 11 of them are from D linemen, the others from Sage Ryan. You had mentioned this, that not pointing fingers, anything more than just, oh, that's an interesting stat that through 4 games they have not had a sack. Whit Weeks is that guy now, right? He is your guy who can pursue the quarterback and get in the backfield and get tackles for loss. And look, in 4 games, Harold Perkins had a tackle and a half for loss. So
yeah.
I'm not trying to lessen his impact on the game. It very much shows up, even not in the numbers, but stat sheet wise, you had pointed out these linebackers have not gotten home yet. Without Perkins, sort of, I feel like that hope hinges on Whit Weeks. Greg Penn is not that type of player.
Yeah. Or again, in the fall, and what made it so confusing, I guess, to this point, that they haven't been able to get home with the linebackers or the secondary, is we saw them blitz, even if it wasn't a linebacker, Major Burns, or I know Sage Ryan has the stack this year, but like those type of guys, we would see them blitz them. So I think Blake Baker has not been afraid to blitz from different positions before. Now, without Perkins and that speed on the field, you have to continue to be aggressive, and you have to continue to be unconventional in a lot of ways. So as a defense, we'll see how they improve from here, because at this point, his absence is not gonna, it doesn't cause for major panic in terms of, oh wow, there's no shot of them becoming a good defense at this point. There is. The defensive line has to continue to step up and play at a high level, but the linebackers now have to, A, stay healthy, and B, be more productive than what they were, because Harold's not going to be on the field anymore.
I think that the biggest hit here comes through, yes, he has not done what Harold Perkins does through 4 games, but that the remaining 8 games and beyond, was that where this defense maybe could take it to
Yes,
another level was that Harold would step up and be a disruptor in games. And now
correct.
we don't get to have that opportunity to see if that's what would have developed. But I think that's one thing that you can get better at DB. You can get better on the D line. You can coach them up as the year goes on. But I think the one spot we held hope that could really shift games was Harold taking over.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you want to. Everybody's asking is, do you think he comes back next year? And I think
I think
that's
the main thing, I think the answer to that has to be his rehab status, right? Like how quickly can you get back? If that means not doing any combine, not doing any offseason stuff, where does your draft stock go? That's my
yeah.
main question.
Yeah, because even to this point in the year, he was in the 20s in a lot of mocks.
That would be slipping from where he
Yeah, so
started.
he slips from, let's say, a top 15 pick to a top 25 pick, and now he's out for the rest of the year, and we don't know how fast he'll rehab or how all that will go. Does he slip outside the top 50, and does he then want to come back for another year to put up, big numbers and potentially have a strong season then? There's too many variables at this point to give a concrete answer about him coming
There's
back or not.
there's NIL that can hold guys over
Yeah.
from saying, okay, if I am going to fall, I might as well come back. I'm not, I don't have to chase money this second. I'm just saying with you, there are a lot of avenues this one could go. I think the main one is he healthy or not when it comes to time to train for the NFL Combine?
Yeah. So obviously, big hit to the defense. We'll see, and it just sucks because at this point they've only played one SEC game, and like I said, I think their best days are in front of them as a defense. You're under a new defensive coordinator. You have so much new personnel, especially with the shakeups on the defensive tackle spot already. The defensive line playing better. I think there were real possibilities of Perkins finding his footing as the year goes on. Some people had mentioned Blake Baker's defense last year. The linebackers to this point under Blake Baker hadn't done much. And then in the back half of the season, they started to really click. Tyron Hopper and guys like that started to put up better numbers. And so that was the hope with Perkins this year. And unfortunately, we won't get to see that.
Well, and he was going to full-time linebacker for the first time
Yes.
in a new defensive scheme. So obviously, beyond any spring or fall practices and camps, you're going to need some games to get your feet under you. And look, we saw Greg Penn with a slow start, and then he put together some good games. We saw Whit Weeks put together some good games. I think everybody hoped Harold was about to turn that corner and do the same, but now reports are out for the year, ACL injury. You've already lost a starter at DT, whom Brian Kelly called your best defensive tackle. Best defensive lineman is what he called him before the year, but certainly best DT in Jacoby and Guillory and John Emery, all with two ACL injuries, one Achilles injury with Guillory. But all three of those guys done for the season. It feels like Perkins on top of Guillory really stings.
Yeah. And just because I know we're not going to talk, we'll talk about Perkins in the mailbag pod. I'm sure of it, but we probably won't talk about him a ton. Past that. For anybody who says he's just was that one Arkansas game or anything like that is completely mistaken, because you look at the stats last year, and I understand last year didn't feel like it was a crazy year.
They were exactly the
75,
same.
75 tackles, 13 TFLs, 5.5 sacks, one pick, 3 forced fumbles, like 5 pass breakups. He
Those are
was
the
everywhere.
exact same stats he had as a freshman.
Yeah, he was everywhere last year too. So this is now we have 27 games of data going into this year of him being a productive player, and they didn't even, and that's at 2 different positions, right? Defensive end to a nickel Sam type role, and now this year he's at that Sam linebacker, and where he was or inside linebacker Will earlier in the year. Now he's Sam, and now he's injured. So, I mean, the amount of position changes he's gone through, the defensive coordinators he's gone through, the coaching, and now for him to be out for the season just really sucks. Just sucks.
Yep. That's a good way to wrap it up here. Again, we expect Greg Penn and Whit Weeks will be your starting linebackers against South Alabama. Wes Weeks now comes back. Very timely because he is the other guy they trust, the veteran. I mean, he played at Virginia as a freshman, and then he's played every year since he's been here. So I would expect to see a lot of the 2 Weeks brothers, a lot of Greg Penn, and let's see if they don't go back to more of that star coverage of putting another DB onto the field, a fifth DB that's not really a nickel, but more of a safety type who comes down and can help in run support
Yeah.
or blitz and get into the backfield or come after the quarterback. But Tough news, Matty B, here for an LSU defense that we didn't expect to be perfect, but they are improving, as we saw yesterday in the UCLA game, holding
Yeah.
UCLA to no points and 4 possessions in the second half, 3 punts and a pick was just what you wanted to see. So Perkins limping off at the end of that game was brutal. I think in a way this feels a bit like Zy Alexander a year ago when he got injured in the Army game and wasn't able to come back, and you lost your most trusted, best player at that position, even if he wasn't perfect every single rep or didn't come up with a pick every game. He had experience, and obviously defenses knew it. So we will have more on this, as you said. Mailbag coming this week, more podcasts coming this week, but we did want to hop on, and really most of the questions in the chat are: does he stay or go with the NFL? And what does it mean for who's next? I think we touched on both of those. But yes, ACL injury, per all reports, going to miss the season. And like, best of luck and recovery to Harold.
Yeah, hopefully he recovers quickly. Obviously an incredible athlete. His entire life, high school to college, awesome playmaker. So we'll see how it goes from here, but best of luck to him. And we'll see what it means for LSU moving forward. So stay tuned to the Bengal Tiger on 3. Subscribe over there if you haven't already. Subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't not. We appreciate everybody supporting us. We'll be back with the Mailbag Pod on Tuesday, and we will talk to y'all then.